So we were away for a few weeks. Thanks for accommodating my travel schedule following the Tigers. Unfortunately, the World Series didn't happen for them, but the benefit of that, Tom VanHaaren and I are back for 4th and 1 Michigan recruiting.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Like you said, unfortunate, but you're going to get a little rest now, so that's good.
I will. It's good. And, well, some rest because this week's a big week. Michigan State, 3:30 on ABC right here on Channel 7 in Detroit. We'll broadcast the game. We'll have a big post-game show, but there's so much that goes into this week. Obviously, the trash talking, the rivalry, the prospects that will be there. We've been away for a couple weeks, so we want to bring you up to speed on everything that's been going on within high school recruiting, within Michigan. If you follow Tom on Twitter at TomVH, you've been keeping up to date, but a little bit more in-depth analysis now. The biggest name is Deshaun Hand. What's the latest on him?
Yeah, everybody's following him closely right now. He just took a visit to Alabama. That was the second of his official visits, and that was a big one. A lot of fans are looking at that because you can never count out Nick Saban. Anytime he gets a prospect in front of him, it's a big deal, and this holds true with Deshaun as well. He was looking forward to this visit, and a lot of people thought that Michigan, or still think that Michigan is a lock, or they're certain to land him.
Right.
Now, I think that Michigan is still in good position to get him, but I've been saying this whole time, these visits are going to be huge for him. He was out to Alabama, now he's going to go to Florida, I confirmed, on November 9th. He's going to make his decision on November 14th, so that gives him about 5 days to really think about where he wants to go, who's going to end up landing him. But this visit to Alabama, I've heard some good things for Alabama fans, not so much for Michigan fans, but like I said, I still think Michigan is in good shape. He's going to go out to Florida. We'll see how everything pans out once all 3 visits are over.
That small time frame from that last visit until his decision makes me think that he'll either have his mind made up by the time he goes to that visit, or that'll be the complete swinging factor. And I think it would be the first rather than the latter.
Yeah, and I've been saying that too. That's an interesting part of that visit is they could blow him away, and that could be the last thing in his mind. Or, like you said, it could be too small of a window for him to really think that he's comfortable with them. So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I do still think Michigan's in good shape, but I think these visits are important.
Had a chance on second down now to go watch Malik McDowell on Friday night, Southfield and Clarkston. Really surprising Clarkston beat them up, but no doubt about it, his dominance is fantastic in person. I had seen a lot of tape on him, but this is my first chance to see him up close and personal. He's huge. He's big. He still hasn't made a choice on where he's going to college, though. What have you heard?
Well, this is going to be an interesting one as well because he's been saying that he's going to take visits out of state to some of the SEC schools, Alabama included in that as well, and he's going to do that probably after the season. Playoffs are starting. Obviously, he's going to be focused on that. But it looks like Michigan and Michigan State, Ohio State, I still think are probably the 3 top contenders. I feel like he probably wants to stay closer to home. He's going to give those schools a good look, the schools in the South. I do think that they have a chance. But he was just out at Ohio State for their game against Penn State, and there's probably a good chance he'll be at the Michigan State-Michigan game this weekend. Since it is so close to home, why not check it out?
One thing before we get into maybe more people that will be at Michigan State, I talked with a few of the coaches on that staff, and something you've learned and talked about, he's a quiet kid, Malik.
Yeah.
And the in-state thing, I think, is very attractive to him because he's someone that his talent wouldn't get swallowed up in the SEC, but maybe his mindset, his attitude, and the way he goes about things would get swallowed up in the SEC. So local, I think, is something you've gathered maybe that I gathered is definitely where he'll be.
And family, too. I think he's close with his family. His parents are very involved in the process. His parents actually really like Michigan. The last visit that they took, the parents were blown away with the academics. That's, again, another point for them. And for Michigan, too. The academics stood out. The parents were blown away. So, I think all of that put together, I think eventually, in the end, he's probably going to see that closer to home is better fit.
His high school coach, Tim Conley, has him as in class first hour. He goes, he's got an A. He's good on the football field. He's good in the classroom, too. Third down, you mentioned it. He's probably going to be at the game Saturday. Michigan State. Who else will be there? What kind of impact does that game have on recruiting? And I guess with in-state prospects, this is a big showcase.
Sure, it's a big deal because Michigan and Michigan State, it looks like since both classes are almost full for 2014, that probably the 2015 classes are going to be where there's going to be more battles between Michigan and Michigan State. Brian Cole from Saginaw, Mike Weber, Joshua Allaby, both from Cass Tech. Those guys are going to be big targets for both schools. There's probably going to be a battle for those two. And ever since Michigan State hired Curtis Blackwell from the camps and the combines and his Detroit connections, Michigan State has gotten a little bit of an advantage with the Detroit schools. They landed J. Rue Campbell out of Cass Tech.
Big get for them, yeah.
Yeah, huge get for them this early on because of Weber and Allaby,
Right.
Campbell's teammates. They might have a little bit of an in there as well. So this game could be big for those 2015 prospects if they all make it on campus to see Michigan State in person, to see Michigan in person. If the Spartans come away with a win, who knows what that could do for them.
I know I've talked about Weber a lot on our Michigan State recruiting show, especially with the J. Rue Cass Tech connection. Is Michigan pushing really hard for him? You say it may come down to a big battle for the two because they've stockpiled a lot of good backs, a lot of good young backs. Michigan State, not exactly the same case.
Yeah, Michigan State definitely has the bigger need right now for running back. They're probably going to get another running back in the 2014 class. There's a guy out of Florida named Madre London, who I think the Spartans will probably end up getting. So it won't be a huge need for them, but it's still a big need. Yeah. And Michigan has Damian Harris already in the 2015 class, so a lot of people have been asking how Harris's commitment impacts Weber's, and I still think Michigan's going after Weber. I still think it's an option for them, but the kicker or the surprise team for Mike Weber might be Tennessee. If he sees a lot out of the Volunteers, which they've been playing great recently,
right.
I think they could be a team that kind of sneaks in the back door. But yeah, Michigan and Michigan State are both going to be battling for him. He's a big prospect. He's put up a ton of yards, a ton of numbers throughout the season. He's the kind of guy that I don't think you can pass up.
When you talk about Michigan State, you generally polarize a room. You get one group of people on one side, another group of people on the other side. Fourth down, we've talked so much about the impact of games, the Akron game, the UConn game, the loss before the bye. How much of an impact does this game have on recruiting from parents to players to future recruits to current recruits to current commits? What is this all about?
You know, it's funny, like you said, we've talked about it before, and I've said before, I don't think one game really affects a recruit's process or how he feels about a team, unless it's a big game, the Notre Dame game, the night game for Michigan. The atmosphere can really sell a kid or really get him excited, but with this game, it's so much different. Because of the in-state prospects that we've talked about, there's pride, a lot of them are fans of either school, there's a lot of trash talking, which we've already talked about. So this game, I think, with all the implications, with the two seasons that have unfolded, with the Big Ten championship implications, the fact that Michigan State's offense has struggled, and now they're kind of coming into their own, they're kind of getting a little bit of momentum. I think there is a lot at stake here with the recruits, and whether this goes Michigan's way, Michigan State's way, whoever wins, I think it's going to have a big impact on the recruits, and especially the 2015 kids that we just talked about, because it's almost as if there's these two schools are at such an impasse with each other right now.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much at stake for the programs that I think if one school can start to get a stranglehold or start to get momentum building with the rivalry, I think it's going to speak a lot to the recruits.
Well, Michigan State's had obviously the string of success within the rivalry, but then we've talked so much about these recruiting classes and the impact they've had on Michigan, saying, well, here they are, they're inching their way back to being a national prominent program. Well, all of a sudden they drop a game, don't look as impressive as they have early on against Notre Dame maybe. All of a sudden Michigan State's pushing for a Big Ten championship here. If they can string together some wins, it is really kind of a point of impasse, and it is really an impactful week.
Sure, and that was the big thing coming into the season. I felt like, you know, a lot of people were a little bit down on Michigan State. There was a lot of questions about the offense, and now here they are. They're the only team undefeated in the division going into this game. So it's a huge game for them, I think, and for Michigan. This could be the pivot for Michigan. Either way within the conference. Yeah. Brady Hoke always talks about the Big Ten championship. This game might be that game that could decide where they go at the end of the season.
So we move on to our extra point. We always talk about the current Michigan team, players that were recruited, that you talked about, reported, that are now on the field for Michigan. What are you hearing about potential changes with your brilliant insight and backdoor information?
Well, this game, I think you have to look at the offense. Michigan has struggled in recent years, and including this season, with teams that spread it out. And luckily for Michigan's defense, Michigan State isn't going to be more of a read option, spread it out. Their offense fits what Michigan State's defense is built to stop, I think. And if you look at that, I think Jeremy Clark, he's got a chance to maybe see the field this week. He's a guy that was really under-recruited. Nobody saw him until he came to Michigan's camp. They offered him at camp as a gray shirt. They weren't even going to give him a scholarship at first. They were going to give him the chance to get on campus, and then he could get a scholarship the next season. They ended up giving him a full scholarship. He's on scholarship now. He's a huge safety. He's about 6'4". I think he's around 230 pounds now. If he can catch on, I think he could be a big asset in this type of game where he could help in run support. He could help in the secondary. And obviously for Michigan, the secondary's been an issue.
Big problem for them all season.
Yeah, so I think he might be a guy where you could see him get a little bit more playing time, maybe for Jared Wilson. I don't know if he's going to start, but I think he could see some playing time. And then Jake Ryan, I think they're going to try to keep building him back into the defense. Maybe at middle linebacker, maybe at outside linebacker. I think they could switch it up a little bit with him, too, as he's getting a little bit more healthy.
Interesting stuff, always from Tom VanHaaren. This is 4th and 1 Michigan Recruiting. We are back with you every week now on WXYZ.com. A big week, Michigan, Michigan State. Follow Tom on Twitter at TomVH. I'll have all the updates from the game at Brad Galli throughout the week, getting you ready for the big matchup that you're all looking for. So thanks for tuning in as always. And Tom, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be back.
That's well said. See you next week.